Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sonia, and today I would like to kind of talk a little bit more about limerence as well, because I know that many of you who come to me in my private practice as well as my videos and any other material that I put out, you all are struggling with a little bit of your own limerent journey. So today I would like to do something a little bit different. I would like to kind of share the sort of healing and coaching process that I kind of take my clients through. So hopefully the story will kind of resonate with you. It will inspire you, and you also get a glimpse of how I actually tend to bring my clients through my own personal coaching sessions. So today's topic or person of interest is Susan. Susan's not her real name, okay, and I've actually modified quite a bit of a story and gotten her permission to actually talk a little bit about what she's going through here. So um, I'll kind of talk a little bit about what she kind of went through or what she kind of started off the coaching sessions with, her questions, and then we'll go through a little bit of the process of breaking down um, why she was limerent, how she could heal, and what were the strategies I actually suggested to her, and some of other models and structures that I actually use in my practice as well. So without further ado, Susan, okay, this is not a picture of her, okay, but she has been limerent almost her entire life. So when she came to me, she was in her 40s, mid 40s, and she was unmarried and was single for quite a while at that point, and she was really worried, that she would never be able to find the love of her life, which is something that she really, really, truly desired. So when she first wrote to me, um, she kind of told me, that she had been limerent since she has been, young, since she was a very young girl. And it started off with, as where it all does sometimes, it started off with boy bands in the 80s and the 90s. And she was always obsessed with a certain, member of the band, and that kind of progressed into very intense crushes, later on in puberty, in her teenage years, as well as college. And I think where she felt really sad about it was that nothing came out of any of those crushes. Okay, so those episodes, though, were very, very, very emotionally intense for her. So when I spoke to her on the phone after she sent me this letter, she was kind of, you could tell from her tone that, when she was describing this episode, she was actually really, really very happy seeing, her crushes around school. She got to interact with some of them, because they were acquaintances. Um, really ecstatic one minute, and the next minute she'll be kind of on a really emotional low, absolutely devastated and pained. She used a lot of really strong emotive language back then. And, if she didn't see them, didn't interact with them, or she saw them interacting with other girls, other ladies, she would actually get really upset. Okay. And her particularly painful episodes actually came about in college. Okay. Because everybody around her, all her peers, her friends, her schoolmates were all like getting into relationships, some of them multiple relationships, breaking up with different people, going on dates, falling in love, talking about their boyfriends, and girlfriends. But she found that she couldn't really bring herself to open up to anyone about the situation that she was in, because she was always perpetually, she felt obsessed with people that, did not even know her sometimes and did not even like her back. And there were a couple of occasions where she was actually limerent for someone that actually, kind of seemed like the guy actually liked her back somehow, but there was no progression. Okay, and she left college, she graduated, and found that this limerent episodes was actually carrying on. Okay, and now in her 40s, she feels that she has kind of the love train has kind of left her. Okay, and that she's deathly afraid that she will end up alone forever, which is something that if relationships are really, really important to you, love is really important to you, something that, you could actually be struggling with yourself as well. So let's kind of, take a look at what were the sources, that was actually contributing to her limerence. Okay, so this is something that I kind of like to do with the people that I'm working with, my clients. So we kind of always go back into what happened to bring you to where you are in your present. I know some schools of therapy do not like to do that, mostly focus on the solutions or the current, the now. But I always think that, my style is, if you do not kind of look back at your past and kind of figure out what got you here, you never really kind of, be able to move on from that. So, the things that were actually keeping Susan limerent, or actually caused limerence in her, was, she started talking a little bit about her childhood. And when she was a child, she had really poor role models around her for love. Okay, so her parents, they were together all the while, so there wasn't any kind of like quarrel or arguments or divorce or anything like that. But she said that they were very cold and distant towards each other and towards her as well. And she had a nanny with her for most of her childhood. But this nanny was also really, really very kind of neglectful and very uncaring towards her. So it kind of perpetuated the feelings of uncaring, behavior from her parents. And when she started going to school, and she actually went to boarding school like really young, which kind of also made her feel rejected by her parents, because she felt like her parents kind of, threw her into boarding school to kind of get rid of her. So in school as well, she kind of experienced rejection. Okay, she had, very close group of friends, and she always found that these friends didn't really feel the same way about her as she felt about them. That she felt more intense and more loyal and committed to the friendship than her friends were. So she didn't really feel like she belonged anywhere. She didn't feel wanted. Okay, so it kind of, the rejection that she felt in school at that time actually made her feel very, very kind of like abandoned. Okay, so it made her abandonment wound even worse. And she also, as we were talking through, this took a couple of sessions, but as we were talking through, she also mentioned, she brought up the topic or the point of emotional unavailability. And emotional unavailability, as if you are familiar with my work around limerence, is a very big contributing factor to why people become limerent in the first place. Okay, because when you're emotionally unavailable, you are not available to others. You find it very difficult to open up to others, but you are also not available to yourself and for yourself. You're basically emotionally disconnected from everybody around you and yourself. Okay, and there were other things as well that were keeping her limerent. Okay, so um, limerence is always built on a pattern. It's always built on a network of patterns and habits. And she felt that she had certain resistance to breaking patterns in her life. Like, it was very difficult for her to break habits, okay, in general. And we also discovered that she had a pattern of procrastination, and it could mean that, she knew that she needed to complete a particular task, or she wanted to pursue a goal. And at that time, she wanted to be, a part of the hockey team in her school. But she was a really good player, and you know made the team, but didn't turn up for the practice sessions, so ended up getting, kind of like asked to leave the team. So things like that, that was very apparent and happened a lot in her teenage years in particular, and also in her young adult years. And when we were talking about attachment styles, which is also a very big thing right now, in, you hear it everywhere in social media, but attachment style theory, I would say, has been a very big part of psychology for decades, before it blew up on wherever, but it has always been a very big thing in the field of developmental psychology, which was my background. So when we went through a couple of the questions and the diagnosis for, attachment styles, I say diagnosis with like inverted, like, air quotes. um we kind of found that she was actually very avoidant in relationships, and it wasn't just relationships, as friendships as well. And this ties back into the emotional unavailability that a lot of limerent people have as well, and which Susan also had. Okay, and in her relationships or her crushes or her dates, um, she always had this pattern, okay, of going in with a very, going in a very emotional high and getting very hooked on that on the chemistry and the emotional high, and then that high, as what goes up has to come down. That high then leads to a complete drop on emotions, and she gets very devastated with what she finds out about her date or her crush or her partner, whatever it is. um and because of all these various things that were happening in her life, and she was feeling abandoned and rejected, she kind of she was also feeling lonely. And to kind of quell this deep loneliness, but also a conflicting deep need for affection, she started getting hooked on fantasy. So fantasy relationships, fantasy ideals, started to kind of look at celebrities, which is very common in when we were younger. But getting hooked on them and imagine yourself in a relationship with them, and things that she felt like she couldn't really talk about her celeb crushes to people around her. So she felt weird as well. And in her real life, in her reality, when she kind of got a little bit older, when she was in her late teens and her early adulthood, she found herself getting attracted, to mostly to men who were emotionally unavailable like her, and who also weren't a good fit for her personality. Okay, they just weren't a good fit. But because she was so hooked on the emotional high, the chemistry, the person's looks, how the person kind of portrays a certain image, she found herself really impulsive in love and not really vetting her partners correctly. So these were the things that were actually keeping Susan limerent. And I'm sure that if you're watching this video and you're thinking, like, nodding your head as you go along, yeah, a lot of these patterns are actually very common for us. If you have been limerent before, it probably feel and sound very familiar. So okay, so before I move on to next bit, there are a couple of Limerence resources that are actually linked down in the description box below. But I do have a book, that I wrote last year on how to break up with limerence and romantic obsession, all the strategies and tips and all types of environmental factors, all the factors, everything. Okay, it's in a book. Link it down in the description. I also ran a workshop last year on attracting emotionally unavailable men, and whether answering the question of whether limerent people can actually find love. So you try to find both of these resources linked down below. And if it's something that you're struggling with, I really encourage you to get one of them. Anyway, moving on. So what we kind of did together after we had that whole diagnosis, session or sessions, really, it was a couple of sessions. Um, we kind of dug a little bit deeper and came up with a little bit of a plan. Okay. So taking together all the themes of what was causing her to be limerent, we came up with this 5-step plan. So the first step was really to kind of rethink and to rewire her beliefs and her ideas about love. Because usually when you're limerent, you tend to have pretty it's not that it's bad, but you can have pretty toxic ideas about love or about relationships, or you could have really outdated ones that need to be updated. Okay, so that's one. The second one was to extinguish some of these bad habits that she was forming around limerence, and reinforce other better, healthier ones. The third one that we did together was to kind of look into remolding her attachment style, to kind of move her from avoidant to slightly more secure attachment style, which could rewire her frame of thinking, and also to kind of make her a little bit more open to secure, love. And the fourth thing we actually did was also to kind of look at her inner child and her inner teen, and heal the issues that came up within then as much as we could. And the fifth was to work on Susan's sacred self. So sacred self is a model that I came up with, and throughout all my own personal development, personal growth, and all the stuff that I've actually looked at with all my clients, limerence, dating issues, friendship issues, manifesting, everything under the sun, it all goes back to yourself, which I will elaborate a little bit later on. But let's talk about each of these points in a bit more detail. So the first thing we did was to, Susan then, kind of we kind of rewrote her beliefs and ideas about love. So what I want to say here is that we all of us, okay, we all have our own beliefs, our ideas, our stories about love that we have formed throughout our lives because of what we experienced in our childhood, what we experienced in our, dating experiences when we were teens, when we were young adults, um, all of it. Okay, all of those life experiences come together to form a story about love. And the problem about these stories and beliefs and ideas, is that they actually guide how we believe and behave in relationships. Okay. And the downer is these stories and beliefs can actually be hindering us if we are not updating them or discarding those that are not helping us. Okay, so a couple of examples here might sound really familiar to you, but I've got lots of clients that come to me and they want to get married and they want to have, kids and they want to be in a loving relationship, but they'll tell me that, oh, all men suck. All women suck. Okay. There are no good women around, there are no good men around. I'm living in the wrong country because the people here they suck. They're not my type. When you keep repeating, beliefs like that to yourself, you are actually hurting yourself and you are also hindering yourself from finding or getting to a destination that you want. Okay, so for Susan, um, she just kept telling herself that nobody will like her. So when you kind of, when put yourself in Susan's shoes, or maybe you are telling yourself, a story like that. When you go into a situation or go on a date, and you really have the frame of mind that the person won't like you, do you think you would be very open, about yourself? Would you be vulnerable? Would you behave in a way that is actually green lighting behavior, for your date to actually get closer to you? Um, so some of these beliefs and stories are actually not helping us and they're actually keeping us further away from the love that we actually want. So maybe for you, if you're listening to this up to this point, it will also be for you to actually think about your own beliefs, ideas, and stories about love. What have you been telling yourself that is keeping you from the love that you want in your life? What have you been telling yourself? And question those beliefs. Are they true? Is there, is there someone or an example that you can give that kind of completely, defies that belief? Okay, so give that some thought. um the second bit that we actually kind of went through was to extinguish some of the bad habits that Susan had and to reinforce some others as well. Okay, so some of the bad habits that Susan had was, she stayed at home a lot. Okay, so she was always on her computer, stayed at home a lot, was always on her phone. She was very, very much into social media, very heavy user of social media, always on Instagram, always on TikTok, which kind of fed into her fantasies a lot more because she was keeping tabs on her limerent objects through, their social media profiles, like what were they posting, were they with, which girl they were with, and stuff like that. So in my own personal experience as well, this was the number one thing that I actually did to kind of heal from my limerence episodes, was that I started to unlearn these habits, the social media habits. Those are the worst. Okay, unlearn them and to form new ones. And when you form new ones, reinforce them. So my example was, I was limerent like crazy about this particular celeb. I think he was a singer. Can't even remember what his name is actually now, but I was very obsessed with him. So I had, pictures and videos everywhere on all my social media feeds. All my YouTube videos were all about him. And it just kind of just kept reinforcing, the fact that I was, I really liked this guy. I was crazy about him, but I couldn't get him, and that made me more, it pained me, you know. Um, so what I did was I had to clean up my entire social media feed, unfollow everything that followed him, um do a lot of cleaning and scrubbing, and just to teach the algorithm again to not show pictures and videos of him. It took a long time, like a couple of months, but after a while I found that because the algorithm was not showing me stuff about him, I wasn't also inclined to get curious and to check things out about him. So that actually really, really kind of helped me, kind of extinguish a lot of the bad stalking behavior that I had when I was limerent. So something for you to think about as well. The third thing that we did was to kind of look into remolding her attachment style. So attachment style theory, talks a lot about, how attachment styles actually stem from our childhood, when we have, when we were in that dynamic of relationship with our caregivers. Okay, so they actually aren't fixed. Okay, they can be changed. Okay, but what, the work that really goes into changing it is a lot of work. Okay, so what you can do right now is to identify what keeps you in your current attachment style. If you're avoidant, or you're insecure, or you are anxious, or anxious avoidant is another type as well. What is making you anxious avoidant? What is it about people, or your partners, or men or woman, that is, that you're not able to trust them? You are anxious around them. You are anxious in love. Is it because you feel that love is something that will abandon you? Again, it goes back to step one in your beliefs, but your beliefs actually tie into your attachment styles. So it's really helpful to kind of find out what is keeping you in your current attachment style. So for Susan, it came back to her feelings of low self-worth. She felt that she was not worthy of love. So moving on to the fourth point. Oh, before that, so I've kind of linked these two resources down in the description box as well, because I do kind of have a quiz in both workbooks to actually kind of, where you can kind of diagnose your attachment style. Okay. And in my How to Build Self Awareness kit, I will talk a bit more about the self secret self model later on. But this is actually to build up your awareness of yourself, and how you can actually begin to heal, yourself from limerence by connecting with yourself a lot deeper. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but let's move on to the fourth point. So this one is a little bit longer, okay, because it's healing your inner child, and your inner teen. It takes a lot of work. So many of us, even those that have secure attachment styles, we didn't have caregivers who could soothe our pain. Okay, and many of us also had a lot of life experiences that we actually took from a child or a teenager's point of view, and we didn't update it, and we didn't let it go. We allowed it to actually continue informing, our lives and our experiences as an adult. So this also involves a lot of kind of going back to your childhood and to your teenagehood, and kind of rewiring old habits and beliefs. Okay, and a lot of um there's a lot of stuff around, like, worth, whether you were, maybe you felt like small and invisible, as a child and as a teen, which was what I personally went through. And I continued, wanting to keep myself small and invisible from, dating partners when I was in my adulthood. Okay, and we need to go from, because we might not have been granted certain things in our childhood and in our teenage years, but it's going from that to, currently as an adult, giving yourself the stuff that you were actually missing out on when you were younger. So these inner child and inner teen work can actually take quite a while, but it's incredibly useful for building a set of beliefs and behaviors that can really be healthy and positive for you in your adulthood. Okay, and yeah, more resources, because talk a lot about the self. So there's, two workbooks on the self love as well as self confidence that you can grab in my description box below. And the fifth point that I want to talk about is working on our sacred self. So this is a model that I actually developed after talking to so many people about their issues. It all boils down to their self. And the first thing that you need to really kind of, think about um the self is your self-awareness. Because if you're not aware, taking the limerence, putting it in the context of limerence, you're not aware that you're limerent. If you're not aware that you have all these, social media behaviors that are actually perpetuating a limerent behavior, it can be very difficult to build a proper connection with yourself. Because when you're not self-aware, you do not know, like, what is making you upset, what are your behaviors, what the actions that you're taking, what your beliefs, and all that sort of stuff. So when you kind of, work through that, then it goes through to the second stage. So the self-trust and the self-acceptance, accepting your flaws, your strengths, your weaknesses, and then learning how to trust yourself. Because if you don't trust yourself, you can't trust another person in a relationship, which creates a lot of relationship problems. And then when you start, building that base of trust, acceptance, and awareness, then you go one step up with the self-esteem and building the self-confidence, very important in relationships. And then goes further up, love and compassion, and so on and so forth. The very last stage is self-mastery and self-actualization, which many people don't reach, but is something to strive to. So in the context of limerence, think about how this model can actually work for you, and whether there are certain things about, yourself that you need to be a little bit more aware of. And okay, another model. I love my models. Okay. So this is my own model as well, healing from limerence relief model. Okay, I call it relief because it's a complete new life that you're actually going through again. Because from the very first step of diagnosing why you are limerent, it takes about 3 to 7 steps to curing. Okay, so for Susan, it took about like 4 steps. And then the next step, when you've kind of diagnosed why you're limerent, and what are the sources contributing to your limerence, then you can start working on yourself, which is the Sacred Self 7 kit that I was actually talking about just now. Um, this model, yeah. So this is all the bit about healing and strengthening and solidifying yourself. And once you have cleared that first two structures, their first two steps, and you know yourself really, really well, that's when you start living and loving. Okay, that is when you go out there and start attracting the love and the partners that you want. Okay, and that's a whole other set of there's a whole other model I have on that, which I might introduce at a later date. But that is how the model actually works, because you need to heal yourself from limits first. You need to work on yourself, and when you work on yourself, you're the best version of yourself. Cliched, I know, but it really is true. The best version of yourself. Then you can go out and attract the right partner. Because if you're not the best version of yourself, you're probably not attracting the people that will actually give you what you want. Okay, or actually, people, I wouldn't say give you what you want, but give you the kind of love and the spiritual growth that you're actually looking for in love. Okay, so that was Susan's story. So I hope it kind of helped in some way. There were many, many sessions, and it's just been condensed into this like half an hour, 30-minute video. So this is a summary of the resources that you can actually find in the description box, and I hope that you'll grab one of them, because I can assure you that it's really, really helpful. And yeah, if you have anything else to kind of talk about in terms of your limerence journey, you feel stuck, you can't go on, you feel like you're constantly like running on a hamster wheel, you're 3 steps forward, 4 steps back in your healing journey, do reach out to me. I have more details in the description box as well. I am opening coaching sessions. These are email coaching sessions, and we'll talk more about what you're actually struggling with, and I'll give you a couple of strategies and tools to actually, yeah, solve what you are kind of going through at this point in time. And then yeah, and then we'll see how it goes. Some people have kind of written into me to ask me if I do like packages. I don't really do packages, but we can actually work something out, so do reach out to me. Either just reply to this comment or reach out to me on my Instagram. I answer all my DMs. So hopefully this session was a session, sorry, this video was helpful for you. Susan is kind of still in her journey. Okay, limerence, healing from limerence is a journey. Okay, I've been there. I took years, but I've come out of it completely limerence free. Healed myself, healing myself. It's always a journey. Don't beat yourself up too much about it. If you feel like you are kind of like not really moving, you will move someday. Have faith in yourself. Um, Anytime you need help, just reach out to me. So just wishing you the best, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, thank you for watching.